So what are my tips for preparing for exams? So my first tip is to understand what's going to be on the exam. Some profs are nice in the sense that they'll give you a summary outline of what to expect in the exam. Some might not. Some might tell you that, what's been tested on the midterm is going to be on the exam again, and what's not tested on the midterm isn't going to end up on the exam. Some might be the opposite. Some might say if it's already tested on the exam, it won't be tested again, and everything else that's not been tested could potentially end up on the exam. So my point here is different profs do exams differently. You never know what to expect. Don't, think just because in one course this is what happened in your department, the same thing will happen again in the next course. Never make that assumption. Always ask your prof to see if they are willing to give you and the class any tips. If they do, good, because you have a starting ground to know what to focus on. If they don't, then here are my tips on how to prepare for exams. So after you figure out whether or not there are subsections or particular sections that might end up on the exam or not, you want to start preparing your notes. What I like to do is I like to write really detailed notes throughout the semester, and I do my notes in Microsoft Word so that I can easily just print out everything at the end of the semester, and I don't have to consolidate slide decks or do screenshots or anything like that. I make sure that throughout the semester as I'm writing my notes that they're in a good enough quality so that they can also be used as my study notes. So after I, create this new copy of all my semester notes, I look through everything to see if there's anything that I already know that's really ingrained in me. Then for those areas, I can just delete it. I also refer to the syllabus to see, week by week, what did the prof wanted to teach us, and I make sure that I have content in my summary notes that relates back to the syllabus. As I'm reviewing these sections, I want to see if there's anything particular that I don't really understand or the prof really skimmed over that I think could potentially be on the exam. And I go through all these different sections and kind of flesh out my notes as necessary. And then once my notes are done, I keep reviewing all the notes and all the sections. I might use different headers in the form of questions, so I can look at the header and then I can in my head answer the question and then refer back to the notes to see if I got it right. This is a form of active recall. Some might use flashcards, etc. There's different ways of doing it, but I really prefer to use active recall because it's a way for me to test what my knowledge is and how much I know or how little I know, so that I can gauge how much more time I need to spend on studying a particular section, or if I need to do further research or ask my friends for their sections of notes, etc., etc. It's a way for me to kind of understand if this question appeared on an exam, what is the likelihood of me answering it correctly versus not. And then as time passes by, I also like to do this in advance, give yourself at least 2 weeks. So as time passes by, as you're reviewing these sections of notes and as you have more and more stuff ingrained in your head and, you start deleting stuff off your summary notes, you're going to find your notes, your summary notes are going to get shorter and shorter. And then at the very end, probably in the last, 2 days, you're just going to be left with, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 items that you don't really know that well. So you can really, really focus on that. And then what I also really like to do right before the exam is just to read, my original summary notes from head to toe again, just so I have a good reminder. And then finally, really make sure you have a good night's rest before. Don't cram it all in one night. It's never a good thing, and you never get anything good out of cramming the night prior. And what I really like to do is, I know a lot of people really like to hang out with their friends before an exam, but for me, that makes me really, really nervous and anxious. Just seeing all my friends, asking them like, oh, what is this answer? Do you know what this is? Or just, asking people for their friends' notes to read right before an exam, before the doors open. It's just really anxious for me, and just it doesn't create a confident zone for me. So what I prefer to do is I might see my friends, but I like to normally not stand nearby them or even sit by them to avoid having them ask me for my notes or them asking me questions about the exam, because it just creates a really nervous state of mind for me. And I personally find that it's very important for you to go into an exam and feel confident. And hanging around my friends where they're asking a lot of questions isn't going to make me confident. It's going to, do the opposite. So I prefer to stand, far away from them. I prefer to even, not read any notes before going to the exam. So if I'm waiting for the bus, I prefer to just listen to music or do something else that relaxes me and stops me from thinking about the exam. So that the time that I'm waiting outside the exam room for the doors to open, I'm as chill and relaxed as possible. So that, when I actually get the exam, I'm not getting freaked out because my friend all of a sudden just said something that I didn't know, or my friend just told me something that I have a completely different answer to, and I don't, have all these different little situations running around in my head. So that's why for myself, I prefer to not even hang out with my friends before an exam, even if we were in the same course, because I want to make sure that I'm, really chilled and relaxed and feeling confident, and avoid any potential barriers or disruptors that may inhibit me from being in that state of mind. So these are my tips for preparing for an exam. You want to see if there's any tips from your prof to see, what sections are on it. If not, then you have to study everything. You want to do active recall to test, and gauge how much knowledge you currently have, or it might be how little knowledge you might have, so that you can gauge how much more you need to study. And then finally, you want to be as relaxed and confident as possible before walking to an exam. If you're nervous like me, or if you dislike people asking you questions about the exam, then you may want to consider just waiting on the sidelines and not saying hi to your friends, to avoid any potential questions or anything that could happen right before the exam, and move you away from that confidence zone and move you into an anxious, nervous zone.